Okay, picture this. The Catholic Church. We're talking 2,000 years of tradition, right? Now imagine they elect a pope who's ready to turn all of that completely on its head. That's what we're exploring today, the totally revolutionary, though fictional, reign of Pope Marcella Althaus-Reid. She was a theologian with a vision for the Church that was, well, provocative, profound, and just incredibly human.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in a place that is just soaked in tradition, St. Peter's Square. But, as you're about to see, tradition is about to get, well, completely shattered.
So the white smoke is up, the crowd is holding its breath, and then out onto that famous papal balcony steps, a woman. Yep, a woman. She's dressed in white, she raises her hand, and the crowd just erupts. They're stunned, but they're cheering. And right there, you're looking at Pope Marcella I. And her very first words? Wow. They signal a seismic shift. It's not just the classic brothers and sisters. No. She intentionally includes everyone. The message couldn't be clearer. The old rulebook, it's gone. So, you've got to wonder, right? What kind of ideas are so powerful they could lead to a moment like this?
To really get what makes Pope Marcella tick, we have to dive into the core philosophy that fueled her entire revolution. It's a school of thought she gave let's say, a deliberately provocative name, indecent theology.
So, what in the world is indecent theology? I know what you're thinking, but it's not about being shocking just for the heck of it. It's actually about stripping away all that stiff, pious pretense to get down to the raw, honest, messy truth of what it means to be human and have faith.
Althaus-Reid uses this really powerful and, kind of shocking image to explain her whole worldview. It's a lemon seller in Buenos Aires who's praying while she works. And here's the detail that makes you pause. She's not wearing any underwear. Now hold on, it's not meant to be vulgar. It's a metaphor, and a deep one. Think about it. The smell of the lemons, the physical reality of her body, her hard work, her prayer. It's all happening at once. It's all connected. For Althaus-Reid, you just can't separate the sacred from the everyday, or the spiritual from the physical. It's all one thing.
Okay, so here's the absolute key to understanding this. She's saying that the idea of decency, the way the church has often defined it, has actually been used as a weapon, a tool to control people, especially their bodies, and to keep a very rigid social order in place. Indecent theology basically argues that this whole system of enforced piety props up other power structures. We're talking patriarchy, heteronormativity, even capitalism. How? By labeling the real, gritty experiences of the poor and marginalized as improper or indecent. It's a way to keep them down. So her goal is to blow that hypocrisy wide open by dragging the messiness of real life right into the center of any and all conversations about God.
And this quote right here, it just nails her core argument. She says that every single time we talk about God, we're doing it from inside our own bodies, with all our own experiences, our own desires, our own stuff. Pretending that theology is some kind of clean, purely intellectual thing that exists up in the clouds, she says that's just not honest. It's always personal. It's always physical.
So where does a set of ideas this radical even come from? Well, these weren't just cooked up in a university library. Nope, they were forged in the fire of her own very real life experiences.
Her story really kicks off in Argentina, where she knew poverty and even homelessness as a kid. And get this, when she wanted to study theology, the Catholic Church said no, simply because she was a woman. But did she stop? Not a chance. Instead, she found her people with the Latin American liberation theologians, folks who directly connected faith with the fight for social justice. That journey eventually took her all the way to Scotland, where working with disadvantaged women really sharpened her focus on the people nobody was listening to. And in the end, she smashed through those barriers, becoming the very first woman to hold a chair of theology at a Scottish university. You see, her whole life was one big fight against being excluded.
And that's exactly why her life's work was always focused on the people pushed to the absolute margins. We're talking about queer Christians, poor women, single mothers, really anyone who was ever made to feel like they just didn't belong. For her, theology wasn't some abstract, academic game. It was a hands-on, practical tool for solidarity, for helping everyone find their own place in God's house.
So what happens when these incredibly revolutionary ideas go from the classroom straight to the Vatican? Well, when Marcella Althaus-Reid becomes Pope Marcella I, her theology doesn't just sit on a shelf in a book. It becomes immediate, sweeping, game-changing policy. And the transformation is, wow, it's fast and it's decisive.
First up, she opens all ordained roles to women and even personally ordains the very first female priests right there in St. Peter's Basilica. Next, she opens up the sacrament of marriage to same-sex couples, basically saying that any faithful, loving partnership is a reflection of God's grace. And third, she makes celibacy for priests optional. She sees it as a gift for sure, but a gift for some, not a mandatory rule for all.
And her logic behind these massive changes? It was just beautifully simple. When people asked her why she was ordaining women, she just fired back with this question. She completely flips the script, putting the burden of proof back on the institution. For her, it was obvious. This exclusion wasn't some divine command. It was a wall built by humans, and it was time to tear it down.
And the impact of this, especially for women in the church, it's staggering. I mean, look at this comparison. It really lays it all out. We're going from complete and total exclusion from ordained power to full-on participation at every single level of church leadership. It's a glass ceiling that's been in place for centuries, just completely shattered.
So when you look at the big picture, Marcella's time as Pope isn't just about changing a bunch of rules. It's about changing the very sound of the church. It's about creating a totally new and way more inclusive kind of alleluia.
And this right here, this might be the most crucial point of all. She argued that her so-called indecent theology wasn't some radical break from Christianity. It was a return to its absolute core. She reminds us that the entire story of salvation is centered on a God who shows up in the most vulnerable, the most scandalous, the most indecent parts of being human. It's a theology that finds holiness not in some kind of sterile, pious perfection, but in radical, messy, unconditional love.
And so, you see, those cheers in the square on that first day, they were so much more than just a welcome. They were a declaration that a whole new reality had arrived. The shout wasn't just, "We have a pope." It was, "We have a female pope." And that became the ultimate symbol that the church, in this incredible new vision, could finally become a real home for all of its children. No exception.